Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition, which is 3 weeks, I think, 3 and a bit weeks, because it's a day late, because son of Lurgy visited and it wasn't a very pleasant companion, and I'm pleased to say it's on its way now. I'll bring you up to date with the scenic work that I've been doing behind me and a little bit that's been done down here. And there are 2 running sessions which I'd actually taken from last video, which I didn't have room for in what was a pretty packed video, with the train cam running on the line in the opposite way to one or other of these engines. So there's 2 sessions in there. So let's first of all go on to have a look at the signal box and its new signalman. You may recall that in the last video I said I was going to buy from Model U a signalman because I'd forgotten to put one in the box when I built this box. And the signalman is now standing at his post. I'll take a closer photograph with a bit better light and put that up here so you can see. The Model U figures, they're not cheap. They're about £5 each. I think that was about a £5, maybe a bit less. But they really are good quality and they're a joy to paint. But he's standing there with the token, waiting for the branch train to come round to hand that to it. I have also taken the opportunity to move the cable into a different power distribution board where the dimmer is not set down so low. So the light in the box is now much better and you get to see the insides better. And again, I'll take some footage and put it up probably about here, just so you can get a look of the signal box without the light, which at the moment is rather blurring out what's inside. I'll see if I can get some footage which doesn't have that effect. Whilst I was busy painting the signaller, I was also busy painting up some other things that I've got, and I'll put up here a photograph of the combination of paintings that I spent sometime last week doing. On the far left there are 2 more Model U figures. One is a postman and the other is a milkman, which will find their way onto the layout when I get back to decorating Bagshot Row and Longbottom Terrace. Sorry, Bagshot Terrace and Longbottom Terrace. The group that's next to them is one that I've had a little while, which is a group you can get from Model U of engine cleaners, and they are going to go into the depot, and I'll show you where in just a moment. But that's a nice little group which you can obviously do a little diorama with, which is what I'm going to be doing. A more successful ability to get these off their bases with all the help that people suggested last time. So much so that only one figure suffered any kind of injury, but unfortunately he lost his left foreleg and his right forearm, which, although that aided balance, did leave him with somewhat limited efficiency, and I'm sorry to say he's had to be retired and won't be appearing on the layout. The next 2 groups of figures are from Buggles Kelly. You may have seen that they're just doing their first N-gauge coach. They've been doing things out at 00 gauge. Laurel and Hardy, who are currently in the playground of the church school, came from Buggles Kelly, and they were at Whalley for the first time last year. The 2 figures standing next to each other, well, one's leaning on the other because he refuses to stand up properly, are of Morecambe and Wise, though you would need to know that, I think. Laurel and Hardy are very obviously Laurel and Hardy. They are probably going to go up onto Station Road up at High Elven. And the group of 3 are of Will Hay, Moore Marriott and Graham Moffat, in the guise from Oh Mr. Porter, and I intend to put those around the signal box by the level crossing when I put a little garden in. I think that they'll go quite nicely there. But as I said, enjoyed painting these. I don't know why I enjoy painting engaged figures, because they're not the easiest of things to paint, but they do come out rather well once they're done, and I'm pleased to have completed them. So if I can move around, I will show you one or two other things that I've done in this area, and I'll come back to you in a bit. Right, having moved a bit and also put a bit better light on, you get a better view of the singler there. The coaling stage that you see in front of you is a kit that I've had around for quite some time. In fact, for a while I'd completely forgotten I had it, and bought a different coaling stage which went up in High Elven, which is where I was originally intending for this kit to go. But I thought I would put it in here, partly because in this area somewhere is where I have in mind to have the cleaners working on the loco, probably with the loco stationed a bit further that way, because on the track between that and the turntable. But it occurred to me that actually you might need a coaling stage of this kind around somewhere in the yard. One, to deal with smaller locos, some of the tank locos that really don't need much in the way of coal, and this might be an easier way of getting it on. Or for locomotives where you don't need a full coaling, but it does need to have some coal added. And in any event, it helps fill the space a bit, because this is all a bit empty, even though this area here has yet to be properly, the scenic work has not been done around it. And now that I've got the signal box in place, I will be able to get on and do that. The kit itself is from 10 Commandments and comes in 3 parts. That's one of them. That's the steps. That's cast resin. The base is cast resin. And as you can see, I've painted that and then weathered it. The top is a moulded white plastic, and the moulding includes the basic shapes of the 3 piles of coal with a moulded coal effect top. And that I painted and weathered up, and then stuck some real coal on top, which is a useful addition very often to models, to give you that better look of real coal rather than painted. And I will show you in just a moment more of that. And I think if I put that in this part, it helps fill the area, and it will help add to the scene, the diorama that I'll eventually put once I put a locomotive into that area. I think it's going to be the 4MT standard 4 rather, which I've got, which has never run very well, and I'm quite happy to park it there. It certainly won't be this, which does run rather well, this locomotive that's there at the moment. Talking of real coal, I'll have to wait for the 9F to come all the way back. Well, let me show you it as it runs around. So the 9F is currently is growing from when you saw it in the previous video. The first 5 coaches are new. I saw on eBay a little clutch of 6 coaches for £27, about to come up in an hour's time, and nobody had bid on it, which I was amazed, because normally groups of coaches go quite quickly. And I put my bid in and nobody did bid on it other than me, which means that I acquired 6 rather nice little coaches. I'll bring this down to the line now as the train comes by so you can see them. The first 5 are the ones immediately behind the 9F, and I filled up half them and then filled them with real coal on them as they're going by now. The other ones that are behind need to have real coal added to cover over the black plastic. And the final one in the group is the little covered wagon just before the guards van, which is a rather nice little thing, and which turns out to be an original Graham Farish Pool wagon, probably from about the late 90s, maybe around 2000. Which did actually have pizza cutter wheels, and I of course swapped those out pretty smartly, because the pizza cutter wheels on code 55 track really don't go together very well at all. So that's, I think, everything in this area now. So let's go and have a look a bit in a bit, and we'll go and have a look at the work that's been done at High Elven, where something has appeared that I'd never thought I was going to put on the layout, and also the groundwork and scenic work that's been done in and around that area. I think I'll split this bit into 2 bits, because there's things that I've done in the front of the layout here, and then show you what I've done a bit behind and up on High Elven, which is where something has gone, as I mentioned earlier, which I just never thought I would be able to manage to get onto the layout at all. So, looking at the front here, in the last video I think I put some of the trees in, maybe all of them, but otherwise I've now completed what I think will be enough trees up there. There is the issue of actually having space between the trees, and that's actually many more trees than were on the layout before. So that's a big step forward. I've also started putting more scenery, as you'll see here, underneath the trees, and I'm going to keep adding that over time until I get to the level which I'm happy with. I don't want it to be completely covered in bushes and things, and I'm quite pleased with how that's coming out, but whether it's enough I'm not sure, so I'm living with that for a while. And similarly, bushes have gone in under here on top of the grass, and all around the front has now been put in with bushes. I completed putting in the paving area here, so that's all been completed. And as part of working on the bit that I'm going to show you in just a moment, this area now has sand fitted in all the way along, which has been painted and weathered to start to give me the track that goes up to the out of use bridge, which will get something put in it when I come round to doing this part of finishing this part of the layout. So this part now is pretty much, I think, completed, apart from obviously putting the water in, which will be one of the last things I do. Turning to this bit, and you'll see more of it the other side, you may recall that all of this area has always been a kind of dark brown, well, a flat brown, strictly speaking. But I didn't like the fact that it also was very flat, because it was on top of cork, I think. Did I put cork on it? No, I didn't. It was on top of foam board, which is what's giving me the rise here. So it was very flat and no real contour to it. So I thought that I would use the same technique that I used up in the gasworks to create the kind of coal yard area where the coal and coke come in and out of the gasworks, to try and give the view of what is essentially an earthen base, rather than this being something that is hard concrete or asphalt. And so I don't know if I can zoom a little bit, and you may get a better, I think that's probably a bit too far, but never mind. You can see that this has had sand put down on it. Firstly, just a simple layer of sand on a PVA base, then vacuum off the excess, let that dry thoroughly, and that took a day or two to do. Paint over again with PVA and put another layer of sand on, and then let that dry, and then put on a wet PVA mix, the kind of thing you use for ballasting, to make it really hard. And this is now really, really hard, I'm pleased to say. At which point I was then able, I went over with a light brown first of all, and have then gone over with a darker brown on top. And that's giving me the variations of colour, but also variations in that it's not now entirely flat, and I rather like that. I also had time at one of the remnants of the box of wonders that Chris Inge sent to me, to make up this little kit. I'll bring the thing in so you can see what it is. Pallets, sacks and barrels, which is the little group of things that are here. And I was really impressed with this little kit. I know I can be quite rude about ratio kits, but this one went together really well. I mean, it's all obviously unpainted, but if I pick up these barrels, so let me zoom out a bit, because otherwise, there we go. So the pallets come in two parts, which you just stick together, and obviously the barrels are individually done. They're all plastic, and you paint them up obviously and put them together. And similarly with the sacks all come as individual little sacks, so you can make up, if I bring this into, make up whatever you like in the way of shape. And I thought that goes rather nicely with Harper's Yard, which is a kind of general warehouse, and with the stack of barrels that you can't quite see because it's the other side, the stack of barrels and another stack of sacks. So that gives me a rather nice load of goods sitting outside of Harper's Yard. So that describes what I've been doing on this side. We'll go off, and I just want to catch up on the experiments with PVA for water, because I had some useful comments come back and some other comments that I'd like to respond to in the video. So we'll go and do that, and then I'll show you this mystery thing that has arrived and is now ensconced in the goods yard at High Elven. do this bit just holding the camera by hand, because I think actually it's easier for manipulating the camera around to show you different angles of what's in front of me. I had some really helpful comments. Thank you for everybody that commented on the PVA experiment and using it for the canal. There were a number that were wondering whether I might try and put some ripples on the top of this. And I've certainly seen it done in larger for 00 scale, though not for a canal, I think. But certainly if you're looking at any like a river. But a canal is usually a pretty placid place. And although you do get ripples from the effect of the wind, if you think at N gauge, they're going to be very, very low. One of the things of using this technique is that once you put the PVA on, it self-levels. And whatever you may put into it, it will separate out. That's why people like Mark Lynn of Sweden use toilet paper to provide the means to which to create some shape when they want to put in things like waves and the wash of a boat or something. One suggestion that came to me from Chris, who comments on my thread that's on the N-Gauge forum, was about painting between the layers. And what I've done here, the empty piece there, was that I was about to have a look at using the technique that Marklin of Sweden uses to put some shape in. And it was then that I realized that actually at N scale I would have what would be major wash coming along what is a very placid canal. This is the piece that was left unvarnished from the last. So that's just had 2 layers of PVA on it. This one now has had a 3rd layer of PVA put on, but on the layer underneath I painted it using some of the WWS green moss, which I've just put into a solution and painted. And you can see the effect that it's given. I've probably been a bit keen actually, because this looks, although I don't know, that our local canal in high summer can have quite a lot of growth on the top as it responds to the sunlight. But you can see the way you can get some shade in, so it's not just a uniform colour. And I think that's going to work really rather well. So I'm considering the experiment now pretty much a success, and I know how I'm going to go about completing this bit of the work when I get to do that, which will be almost the last thing I'm going to do in that area, because the temptation to put things down in the middle of that basin is really quite high, and I suspect anything heavy resting on this will leave an indelible mark that it would be really rather difficult to get out. So that takes care of this. Now let's get back onto the layout. Part 2 of the work I've been doing in this area, the base around here has been treated in the same way as I described before. So that's sand base, which does, it just breaks up what was otherwise a very flat base on which things were sitting. And when I put these on permanently, I will fit them in so there's not the line that you can see under them at the moment. And that will, I'll do that in a way that I've done on another thing that I'll show you shortly. The main thing is that the sand has been brought all the way down from here. It's been put on these ridges and in the base here. This has had some static grass put on it. That's had various bushes of different kinds put on there. This will get more work done to it here. I want to make up my mind that probably just bushes, but this would probably carry on a bit here, I think, and maybe something else in that area. And I want to have a think about the centre part here as well. I've put the timber yard back in place, and I'm playing about with how I lay things out. I mean, one thing that immediately strikes me is that there is nowhere near enough timber there, and I've got various things, some stuff that Tony from the Heritage Line sent me, and also I've still got more balsa wood that I can use to create more of these timber piles, because the one thing about the timber yard is that it has huge amounts of wood, and this is not nearly enough. So I will spend a bit of time making some more at some point when I come to complete this part. The thing which I sort of elliptically alluded to as being on the layout, which I never imagined that I would get on there, and if I just move you up and across, is now in the centre of the screen, which is a cattle dock and a cattle wagon. The cattle wagon was really the cause of the cattle dock. Among the many things that I discovered during my tidying exercise, which unearthed the coal stage, was a couple of kits from Pico, one of which was a cattle wagon. Now I've been putting off, I remember I put off doing it because I didn't really want to engage with water slide transfers in N scale. I have used them, as you know, when I renumbered various locomotives, and they can be tricksy things. But I thought, well, give this cattle wagon a go. See what you make of it, really. And helpfully, Pico, of course, do sell a fully made up, ready to run cattle wagon. So I was able to borrow from that for some of the things that I've done on this. And once I had the cattle wagon, it seemed to me only sensible that it needed somewhere to unload and load its stock. Around the corner here is a very large gate, which I always put there in the expectation that it would be for lorries coming in, delivering stuff to the depot, or possibly taking stuff away. But actually, it works perfectly well for a cattle truck to deliver stock to be able to put on to the cattle wagon. Manchester Models had a number of cattle docks, one of which was a single one, which is the one that I bought here, which was just the right size to go into that space. So that's gone in. When I fitted it in, I cut out this base which I've done there so that it sits in there, and then filled it back in again. The kit is as with all the Pico kits, if you haven't tried them, is very simple. You have the underframe, which comes as a single piece. The two couplings come as single pieces and drop in. There's a piece of metal that sits on top of the underframe to give it some weight, and then the body goes through two holes, and it's secured by two nuts, which are 3/18 of an inch or 3.2 millimeters. And that 0.2 of a millimeter is a right little devil, because a 3 millimeter nut spinner will not fit, and a 3.5 millimeter nut spinner is too big. And 3.2 millimeter nut spinners are not easy to get hold of, and they're not cheap either. But I do happen to have one. And then there's a separate roof. So I painted everything up, engaged with water slide transfers in Engage, which I hadn't done for a while. And actually the E on the side there is a tad wonky because it slid just at the crucial moment, and I didn't notice to put it back in whilst it was still wet. And by the time everything had dried, of course, it was too late to move it. So never mind. But it has emboldened me to think about perhaps doing some more kits. So with that, I think that brings us pretty much to the end for this video. I hope you've enjoyed the running shots, which, as I said, were taken for the last video, but the train cam ones were so good I didn't want to cut them down, and I already had plenty of material for that. It's Model Rail Scotland next Friday, which I'm very much looking forward to, and hopefully meeting up with a few people there. If you do see me at Model Rail Scotland, if you're coming and you want to say hello, please do feel free to come and say hello. If you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It's very helpful. If you've not subscribed and you'd like to subscribe, it's free, and it'd be great to have you along as I carry on the work of doing the scenic work now that all the major structure work's done. So until I speak to you again, probably in about 2 weeks' time, That's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.